The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
All right, everyone, welcome to World Blockchain Roundtable episode 45. This week is the future NFT use cases theme. Hosts for today are Greg from Rivet, Dave from Din.social, Jeffrey from Sticky DAO, Satoshi Sean, entrepreneur and everyone's friend, and me, Dragonchain founder and architect Joe Rotes. And let's see here, quick update on last week's show with the distribution of layer ownership tokens for the WBRT layer. Each host will receive 133 lot. Every topic contributor 33 lot. We got through a lot of them last week. The theme was suggested by Sebedingus, and he'll receive 33 lot. Also, the ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and most importantly, governance votes. And speaking of governance votes, there was a resolved governance issue for the WBRT layer, which was for the April themes. And so the winner of the April themes was rise of privacy tokens due to CBDCs, individual liberty in an area of globalization, blockchain tribalism, and projects rising up over FUD. And so you can essentially, this is how we run the roundtable, that the whole thing's a DAO, and essentially the topics get picked by the community, and the ownership is derived from the people that are contributing to the show in the various ways. So it's a good thing, and it's all based upon views. Like, say, the number of lots that are created every week is based upon that week's, that first week's views for that show. Right now, I guess we have the first thing to talk about is current events. So up front, we had to talk about Axie Infinity, OpenSea, the Solana NFT coming into OpenSea, and alternatives for OpenSea, oddly enough. So what do you guys have to say about well, first of all, the Axie Infinity issue, right?
It's one of the biggest hacks in history so far, so that's pretty big.
It's nuts, yeah.
Yeah. How much was it? 600 million or around that number?
That's right. That is kind of nuts, isn't it? And how
can you let so much money be stolen from you? That's surprising to me.
Yep.
Like, why don't they distribute it more over several wallets or several accounts, or
right, or just use a ledger and have no way to do it because somebody can't get in your back pocket, like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, if you're stewarding that much money, it just seems like a no-brainer.
I've been kind of catching up on last week. I was slacking last week, and I've been nose to the grindstone this one. So can you catch me up on what you're talking about? Somebody got a bunch of stuff stolen, and it was all in one account?
Well, hold on. First, one of the coolest current events.
Okay.
It's that I have my
oh, nice. that does look good.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Sean. The supply chain issues came through. There's peace in the world, apparently. Putin's no longer to blame. It was actually my fault, Sean, so sorry about that. Someone had stolen a credit card number, and it wasn't updated. So anyway.
Still waiting on my hat.
But yes, apparently someone stole about Axie Infinity, and I've never played it. I've looked at it. Like, there's a layer even in Den, that that's mostly how I've kept up with it. But it seems like there's a lot more new crypto people in that, right? I mean, I would
That's what
that they would be.
Well, and the key here too is Ronin network is not like it's not Ethereum. It's a fork of it, right? Like it's not exactly the same thing. So there may have been more exploitable surface there.
So was something exploited remotely, or what was the actual problem?
So I will read to you the lead on or unless they buried it, the headline about this.
Okay.
New York CNN Business says. Actually, I shouldn't read from them. They're a terrible source. But
man.
So I'm going to find a different source.
No, you can go with CNN. That's fine.
No, I'm not going to go with CNN. I have a personal reason.
You think they're going to lie about Axie Infinity?
Yahoo Finance is far more reliable.
Yes.
Yahoo Finance is far more reliable.
They're kind of like John Lovitz reporting on the news.
Right.
Anybody get that?
I didn't.
He was the liar on Saturday Night Live. Just lied all the time.
Oh, right.
Or here, I'll get really old. He's like the Suzu guy.
Let's go with the ever more trustworthy CoinDesk, and I don't say that ironically. The latest crypto hack may be the largest yet. The gaming-focused Ronin network announced Tuesday a loss of over $625 million in USDC and ETH. I'm assuming that's like an on-chain wrap variant.
Yeah.
Like they're bridged. According to a blog post published by Ronin Network's official Substack, the exploit affected Ronin validator nodes for Sky Mavis, the publishers of the popular Axie Infinity game, and the Axie DAO.
So it was a validator exploit.
Yeah.
On the network. I've seen those. Those are terrible.
Yep.
There was a one that shall not be named where I was involved for a little while that had I don't even know if anybody knows about it, but for fucking months, man, there was like a poison type of node, and it was just skimming millions. And then, like
a little more detail, because I also wanted to get this one in there. GlobalCryptoPress.com reports the incident occurred on March 23rd, and the attackers used hijacked private keys to create bogus withdrawals, basically, using a backdoor.
Oh, that's way okay.
Right, so they got 170,000 ETH and 25.5 million USDC.
Cool. That last part was probably the only important part. Somebody got private keys and found a way in. That's basically the whole story.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, now I'm not cool, but now we know.
Well, I mean, not cool, but and also
cool for me because now I'm in the know.
Right. I mean, and there's a. Go ahead.
I was going to move on, so you can finish up. Sorry.
I was just going to say there's a lot of risk in a lot of these new splintered off layer 2s, and that's something that I think people need to be cognizant of when you put your resources into into networks that are running on layer 2, because the quality may vary. Your mileage is going to depend a lot on how good of a job those teams do. Yep.
And anything like that is scalability. You need to know where the decentralization is. It needs to be a little more apparent to people that, if it's holding funds, you have to be careful. So the next was the Solana NFTs.
Well, I think I want to say something on that. This is such a critical time, I think, for crypto, because especially in gaming and NFTs and all this, and the stuff that's blowing up is the stuff that's bringing people in. And when the biggest story is that this is one of the biggest thefts in history. I mean, this is like governmental thefts, this is like over half a $1 billion. That really shakes just the average person's trust. The noob, especially the no coiner that knows nothing. Literally, the only thing they know is, hey, people played this game, and it was the biggest theft in history. I'm not going to touch that. I'm not going to mess with that.
Yeah.
It's like someone that's never eaten at a restaurant, and then, they hear about 22 people died across the country. Like, oh, I'm just never going to eat at that restaurant, ever.
That sucks too, because that particular game is a lifeline for people who need food for their families. That particular, Axie Infinity game, these are funds that people, I forget what country it is, but like it took off in one particular nation first because people needed. I think it was Philippines. Yeah, it was like the northern part of the country there. So these are, and then like the word got around, and then you would have, I even read a story about how the developers had to go and make sure that there wasn't a bot on the system, like grinding the game kind of thing.
You brought that up last time.
Yeah, there was a household who was making income, and then they got grandma and the kids involved, and it was around the clock. They would just trade off and play this game, and they would have a continuous income. And so it's these people's money that you're taking.
It's the biggest.
Yeah.
So, and there's, there's whole like businesses, where people go to work. They're like sweatshops with people playing a game, and basically that's like the income for a lot of people. So it is. I'm sure it's not going to be the end of the world, but it is going to hurt, people for probably a month or two, because there's probably going to be people that just don't get paid or don't have the money because they've that's literally an industry. It's like a real job that they I'm gonna go play a game for 10 hours today or 8 hours today.
It's also it's a bunch of scholarships.
What was that?
So it's a bunch of scholarships mostly with Axie Infinity. It's one leader that is paying for a whole group of people that is playing for them, and they split the rewards, and that's how they make a living. So
it's a mining pool. It's a human mining pool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, man. Yeah.
And what's really unfortunate about all of it is it comes at a time when a lot of state authorities are thinking about regulating things.
Yeah.
And they're going to see this as a consumer protection tragedy, which it kind of is in a sense, but they're going to see that not as an opportunity to implement a good solution, but they're going to see it as an opportunity to clamp down.
Well, when you say
it's going to be like Axie Infinities ought to be illegal as opposed to we know how to fix it.
To go out of my comfort zone and to be the positive guy. If there was anything that was just lazy security, there could be something good. Like, hey, if you're going to operate this, you have to have so much money. You can only have so much in a hot wallet. You have to take certain security precautions, or else you can get fined, or else you can get in trouble. Something like that kind of, that would be a good thing to do.
The issue, the thing is, though, the thing is, anytime you put that in the hands of those people, you'll get something. And I can't remember the example. We should all look it up. But
I said I'm just trying to be positive and out of my comfort zone.
There was a hack in, say, 4 or 5 years ago that it was an exchange hack, and the only reason it happened is because the regulators didn't like the fact that the exchange was using best practices. They were using crypto best practices, and they're like, nope, you can't do that. You have to do it this way. Mm-hmm. And it was essentially crippling all the security, and they got hacked. And yet, when you say they will see it as an issue with consumer protection, they will use it as an excuse to do something. But half the time, I would think
unused.
Right. This ought to be a proposal in every DAO, basically.
Again, how many billions of dollars are in that world and in the gaming world? And who's to say that if I was a gaming company with billions of dollars and I was a ruthless, horrible person, maybe I would attack these things on purpose. It's like, haha, I've destroyed that entire part of the industry for a little bit longer. Right.
Well, we all industries talk about, self-regulation. And how it would be better if they had self-regulation, and with the exception of blockchain, it was really very difficult to have self-regulation because you didn't have that level of transparency.
Yeah.
But with blockchain, you could have as part of your DAO, you could set up rules that, hey, if these wallets ever get above this, the team could get in trouble. There'll have to be a smart contract where if it gets above this certain amount, everything gets sent out to all these wallets and gets brought down to a different level. Yep. So you force those people in charge to basically adhere to security standards. but people would have to watch that, or you could use smart contracts. But basically what I'm saying is that in a more decentralized system, regular people have to take a bigger share of the responsibility when it comes to security. I mean,
but that's a good point, because the thing you bring up right now is really important, because it looks like they didn't use a multi-sig wallet at all. It's just one wallet with one person giving permission with the keys, instead of a group of people, like 3 people or 5 people that need to get permission first. So
yeah. And by the way, anytime you see an exchange hack and they had tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in a single wallet, in a hot wallet, you have to think, it's probably an inside job. That was
90% of the time, it's an inside job.
Yeah.
When it comes to
anytime an exchange does that, and I'm not going to mention any exchanges, but there's always something fishy there. So,
I mean, and the other thing is for people to remember is like DAOs are a really great way to regulate this because of all of the diversity of thought you can get in there, right? Go ahead and allocate some DAO resources to secure an audit. Go ahead and incentivize some really badass security expert to join your DAO and check things out by granting some tokens to whoever wants to join. Like there's so many ways that this can be done without a heavy regulatory hand, and I think that we're going to be discovering these by the mistakes we make, right? As we do. But
in the end, what we really want is individual based. Do your own research, understand. Educate yourself about how to manage the keys, and do your best at that. And the tools will develop as we go. But that's what's really, really needed. And this whole the government's going to be the nanny and come in and make sure that you don't do anything that could hurt you never works. So. That's what we want to get to anyway. And, it's not that hard. I mean, I will tell you, Dragonchain early days, our entire goal was a year of education, where in the middle of all of the stuff going on in 2017, we were like, listen, if we ever make an announcement that we're going to sell tokens or do anything else, it's going to be signed with this Bitcoin address. Literally back then, a Bitcoin address. And I picked one that was like, I don't know, like index 100 or 200 off because it ended in DRAK, right? So there was a Dragon related Bitcoin address, and maybe whatever. But one way or another, it had it had amazing effect, because people would come into our open source Slack channel in the day and announce that we were going, with my my icon and with my name in their account, would announce that we were doing some token sale or something, and everybody would,
so much fun with that, man.
Signature hash rate didn't happen, right?
Yeah,
Telegram, you'd always get hit with all the, all the fake people. But anytime you're on a project, like I'd be an advisor, or on the team, and people would make up they would make a fake account for the head of the CEO, and they'd always message me, "Hey, I don't have the hardware wallet. I need to get us on this exchange. I got a really good deal. Will you send me, 2.5 Bitcoin?"
Yes.
And I would just, so many times. So I would just be like, "Oh man, I told you I can't do that anymore since you killed that hooker." And, I paid the cops off with that, the last time you told me to never send the money. And then they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, it's like, I can't do it anymore." I said, the last hooker you killed, that cost us like $45,000. And, I know you were in, whatever country, but I can't send the money. We have to have the, 2 or 3 of us have to agree to it now. And they're like, no. I was like, no. And then I'm like, I can't keep killing people to, clean up your messes. And it freaked the crap out of me, man. Yeah, it was fun. I would try to have fun with that.
They go and report you to the cops because that's awesome. Okay, do you want to talk about the Solana and NFTs and OpenSea, or?
Yeah, we need to
definitely.
We need to give a shout out to the Grim Syndicate people, because they are the first partner.
Yes, that's awesome. That was amazing, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I love that.
Yes, Crypto Lothar.
So they say it's as early as next week, or maybe in the worst case, the end of April, that OpenSea will support Solana NFTs, right?
think so.
Yeah. So do you think that will change the landscape a lot? Because we also have Polygon already on OpenSea, which is a layer 2 for Ethereum, and is not really getting a lot of traction with traditional collections.
Yeah.
Mainly it's used in gaming still, like the Polygon layer, instead of NFTs.
Well, I think the key with Polygon is really like the reliability of their infrastructure. Like that's actually one of the things that at Rivet we're working on is getting support for Polygon endpoints on our infrastructure service. But basically what we've heard from pretty much all the voices that know in the industry is that the thing holding Polygon back is that it's crashy, that it's unreliable, and that a lot of that has to do with just blocking and tackling basics of running good well-maintained cloud infrastructure, and that's something we're focused on right now. I mean, we're going to Polygon next, but we're going to be expanding to a lot of different chains because of that.
Because with Polygon, the transaction takes like sometimes hours to confirm, right? But Solana doesn't have that issue, so maybe it's.
Oh, Jeffrey lost.
We'll have to see how it plays on, but.
Yeah, breaking up there a little bit.
He's back. How do you guys feel about Solana though? Like being on it, do you think that's a reason maybe why they're pushing KYC so hard? Because technically, they could put that up on the network, and people who aren't KYC'd could be a reason for them to send men with guns to the Solana company who can shut down the chain.
Well, that's possible. Like that's happening right now with a lot of companies that are, like the KYC problem. I do think Solana will have more adoption on OpenSea than Polygon did. They probably should have done Solana first instead of trying to play with Polygon. It's like an exercise chain. Sorry, I derailed myself there. I think like there's another. I'm really into what like Skynet's doing with storage and stuff, but they had a similar problem where they had something that was open to no KYC where you could host stuff. And then of course takedowns and ISPs get legal directives to take stuff down. So what they did is they actually have 3 portals now, and one of them is still open, no KYC, open to public. One of them is free, but it requires a sign up, just a simple login with an email, which like what we found on DIN is kind of enough to get people to get the bots out in the beginning and stuff like that. And then so there's that, and then there's a third domain completely separate, and that's the same thing, but it's paid service and you get more with it. And so when there's abuse on the free tiers, usually the lower tier goes first, ISPs take it down, but then the paid users don't get affected at all because they have a different domain, different website, everything to access it through.
And we could do things like staking to do that in a Web3 like crypto native world, to where like if you want to be a paid member who is trusted, not to do bullshit, that you post a stake. Right. Yeah,
that, but also like the underlying technology, and this is the same with OpenSea and all the chains and stuff. The assets on the underlying decentralized network, they're still there. So all 3 of these domains are just a different interface or portal to the same underlying infrastructure, right? So if you're a techie, you could do it all yourself. It's just like the easy mode interface is what gets taken down. So these takedowns don't take down the network. They just take down the ability for the normal average person who doesn't understand how to drop into a command line and set up stuff. Like it denies them access, not everybody else. So it's an interesting thing for sure when you have systems that can live on their own regardless of what some humans say they want it to do.
Right. If you can manually pretend to be the UI because you know how to send the right signals, then you can still do it, and then there's nothing anybody can do to stop it.
Right, like if you take down a DNS entry, but you can still access Pirate Bay from the IP address.
Right, exactly.
I thought we were going to talk about the Will Smith slap, for current events, but okay, you guys.
I will say that it's beautiful to see a meme birthed. Yeah. Let's not go on like we did last week for 2 hours before we start the questions, though. What do you think?
Yeah,
yep, sounds like a good plan. We should slap that right in the face.
Real or fake,
Fake.
It was fake.
I don't know, man. I thought it was fake at first, but now, and his Chris Rock's ticket sales, the cost went up by 10x from $45 to over $400.
I don't actually care, but I think it makes sense that it was fake because ratings are down. They're both talented actors. They know how to act.
I saw a thing sponsored by Pfizer.
Yeah,
Pfizer has a drug coming out to affect the whatever that the condition is with the hair. At the same time,
I didn't know that. All of these conspiracies. Just to be different from all of you guys, I say it's real. So
fair enough. That's totally okay.
It very well could be.
For me, if they take away his Oscar, then I think it's real. Or I think they weren't in on it.
Yeah. They're all the whole thing. There's no difference between this and politics. They're all actors. It's all
fake or real.
Fake
or real. I also think there's probably, and just I won't go on at length, but fake or real. It's really more of an indication of where we are as a society, where we treat speech as equivalent to violence, and if we do that, then we're going to see more of this kind of thing happen.
Guess what? Yeah, more violence on the way. That's all it all means. But anyway, let's get into a theme of this week is future NFT use cases. Sebadingus also created this entry. So Jeffrey, I wanted to hear about Sticky DAO, what is Sticky DAO? How does it, particularly about utility, right? Because I have some questions too. So,
okay. So can I do like a 2-minute introduction, or is that too long?
Go for it.
I'm okay. Yeah, we're
still usually on current events now, man.
Yeah,
we're really good.
Yes.
So yes, I'm Jeffrey, the founder of Sticky DAO, and previously I have worked at Dragonchain and Denda Social, so that's also how we met, of course. So about mid last year, I created the Discord community for NFT collectors, and we are focused on sharing signals with each other for upcoming and existing NFT drops. Some of our earliest members are now part of the Sticky team. So we have Rans, Arias, Agnim, Alec, Sir Watgains, to name a few people. So they are really awesome people, and we decided to create our own profile picture collection. It functions as a membership at the same time for our DAO. So anyone who holds the NFT will be a member as well. There will be close to 9,000 Sticky, and they are all created by Angela Santos, artist, and the greatest future-proof metaverse vault. So we want to have curator elections to find the most knowledgeable people for all sorts of NFTs, from gaming NFTs to avatars, music NFTs, maybe even social NFTs like Den has. Because for us, utility is really important. So we want to invest in assets that are relevant like 10 years from now, right? Because a lot of collections right now are scams and they will disappear in weeks or months. You will never hear from them again. So it's a really dangerous field to invest in right now still. It's so early. But yeah, utility is a big part of a successful long-term collection, in our opinion. So that's why we partner with Denda Social. But also we have other partners that I think are cool to mention briefly. So one of our partners is Arcade NFTs. It's a Web3 gaming company, and they created the first on-chain games payable directly on OpenSea. And they are launching a new MMO game in April this month, or almost this month, next month. So it's called Meta Dragons, and it will be launched on their new Arena contract. And later today, we'll have an article out with partnership. Partnership is with Trade Sniper. So they are the fastest ranking and review tool for NFT snipers. We are adding a trade in our own collection. So the Trade Sniper logo, 8 people will be able to mint that trade. And if you own them, you can claim lifetime free access to their subscription services. So that's pretty cool, in my opinion. Then one other one is asset.money. So this is a portfolio tool. The estimate is based on the rarity instead of the floor price. Because right now, a lot of NFT portfolio tools, they estimate the value based on the floor price or latest sales. It's really inaccurate, and that's a big problem right now. So they try to solve that, and they will give our holders 6 months free access as well. So yeah, that is some of our partnerships, and of course we have Den.social as well. Probably a really, really important one for the future of our DAO. And maybe we have time to talk about that as well. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
We do.
Totally.
Yeah, because we will use Den.social for a lot of stuff, right?
You keep cutting out.
For our active contributing members, right? To create proposals.
Jeffrey, we didn't catch
comments.
that last bit. You got cut out. You guys all hear that?
Yeah, you got cut.
I didn't understand it. So.
Sorry, which one was that? The last part?
Just the last sentence or so. Just what?
About our partnership with Den.social?
Yeah,
or
when you started talking about Den.social, it started cracking out.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, sorry. So for Den.social, we will utilize like the on-chain governance tools. So for our proposals inside the DAO, it will be published on Den, and people who are holding the NFT will get access to vote on the proposals. They can comment, leave replies. They can get rewarded in crypto for their contributions. So yeah, we are trying to use as many features of Den.social as possible. A lot of it is a bit experimental, of course. It's all new as well for me. But I think Den.social is really the best place for DAOs to be because of the on-chain governance. Everything is on-chain. Like the whole thing is built on top of Dragonchain, so all the transactions are decentralized through Bitcoin and Ethereum and other chains. So yeah, that's a lot of technical details that people don't need to know, but it's really cool technology behind Den.social as well. So it makes sense for us to partner with them. Yeah.
Right. Fantastic, man. That's
and it's
seriously awesome.
NFT based voting, right? So if I hold the NFT, I can effectively participate in a DAO. And are you also rewarding based upon participation in the DAO votes? There's something there too, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because we want to try something new with them as well. That we want to keep track how many times DAO members vote on proposals. So they will get like a count on top of their NFT that they hold. Like maybe in the next year they will vote 10 times on a proposal, so that gives like 10 points. And then in 2023 we want to evolve these NFTs. They will be dynamic, and the more active our DAO members are, the more aware their evolution will be next year. So
I think that's important. That's one of the things that I want to do that too with stuff I'm doing on Den, because one of the things that I'm seeing right now is, even for myself, there's not enough of a incentive for people to go participate in that extra governance section, right? Because Den's sort of designed for people to not have to know or care about all that if they don't want to. But something I'm doing locally is using those social NFTs you talked about for voting and things like that. I'm using them as basically as a proof of attendance token for local events. And so people receive them by participating in the stuff we do. And the more they participate, the more vote they get. But we still don't have, like what you were talking about, we still don't have the metrics on, like, okay, if you vote more often, not just because you have the token, but behaviorally, like if you're actively engaged, you should get a little extra bump in your weight because you care more, right? That kind of thing.
Participating governors who show up, have a continued incentive to do so. And it will emerge the right behavior from the incentives.
Speaking of which, that's how, and I actually, if you compare the way we do the Super Happy AMAs to the way that we modeled this show is remarkably better modeled, that everyone who provides content with questions that gets ranked up and gets answered, and everybody who participates on the show with their face gets awarded that. And it was an interesting thing because we were like, okay, how do you future proof this so that in the future when if you have high viewership, that it doesn't break any of the incentives. And so yes, it's kind of interesting, and I hadn't thought about that, adding an incentive to the DAO vote, which would, like Dave said, would be valuable, because sometimes people are like, oh, that's the last thing they think about, right? And so they, then
ideas, and this is one of them. So
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's
and the
kind
real
of,
incentive to
I'm
DAO
joking.
to be
I
early,
think it's
right?
kind of a
Is that
gamification, which is, I think, really smart. Pretty much, any video game, you've got a like dailies. You just sign in and you get your some kind of free stuff, some kind of free reward. And I think it's a good idea just to get people more involved in the community aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
That it's just one of the differences in crypto blockchain. It basically, in the social media that I think we're trying to create, it's more of a community social media, it's not just a corporate social media.
I mean, before, like, the old
it's
barrier
one of the things
between...
that I think really needs to shine more, how you're not just a cog in this, in making someone else money. You know what I mean? It is a very different atmosphere.
Yeah. Right. There's like this old barrier in sort of like the Web 2/ every type of commerce before, where you had to send some things into the market and consumers either bought them or rejected them. But if they had feedback that could fix them, like, we love this thing, but it doesn't come in blue, and blue is the only color anybody wants it in. That was something the company had to figure out by like sensing the market. But now we've actually got a situation where people control the service, and the people that use it get to say what it does. You don't have to wait for that. You just say, I want it to change this way because it'll serve our needs better.
Yeah, and I think the definition of a successful project in that realm is going to be based upon how they map the behaviors of the user to the participation or influence that user has. So the more a person participates and understands the system, the more they have weight in affecting decisions. And the closer you can map that to the proper behaviors, the more successful that company will be, because you'll get the best ideas, you'll get the most efficient planning, and I don't know, it's interesting. So that's an
interesting thing you just said, Joe, because one of my favorite bosses that I ever worked for when I was active duty, he had this thing about voting where he said everybody should get a voucher to go vote, and you can use that voucher to either vote or buy an ice cream cone. And if you would rather have the ice cream cone, I would prefer you not to vote. So go get your cone. And it's interesting what you said about like people that understand it more being like, because there is sort of a learning curve there. The more you understand the system, those are the people that are going to figure out how to do the voting thing and get involved with the mechanics of the, running the show and stuff.
Right.
So I'm wondering, and I don't know, I just thought of it, but I wonder if like, you don't want too much friction because new users need to be able to onboard. But is friction useful whenever you want to make sure that only people who know what they're doing do a thing?
That's the thing. The early user without much effect, if they do vote, it doesn't matter that much. So it's a good thing that if they don't understand and vote opposing to what's probably the best option, it doesn't matter that much. But once you, I don't know.
The only system we have in human history to get to right answers is wisdom of the crowd. Like that's the only one that has ever really meaningfully shown to work better than throwing a dart at a dartboard. It turns out if you throw a lot of darts at the dartboard in sequence in different instances and you aggregate them, one or two of those will hit the right mark.
How about visualized? What if you visualize hitting the target first, though?
Maybe. You can try it. Everybody has their own method. I think that's why it works. Is the more minds you add, the more the more solutions you get, and one of them ends up being right. And people just tend to stick with what works.
Visualizing is just aiming and focusing. So yeah, that'll work.
Can I ask one more question about Sticky DAO too?
Maybe.
Do you see it as, because the way when I first read it, it's like, oh, this could potentially be my way to get into NFTs with less stupidity, because I don't get which ones, and I don't have time to be in the Discord server. Yeah. So maybe it's a way to get a good access to those.
Yeah, that makes sense. That goes back to what Greg said as well, because it's basically the wisdom of the crowd, right? Yes. You get a lot of people that are interested in the same topic, and they are spread out in a lot of different communities out there, and they keep an eye on everything all together, and they share the best, you hope that they share the best pieces with the whole group, so we all benefit from that. And that's why a lot of they call it alpha communities in NFTs. They share the best stuff with each other, and then they hope that they all profit from that. So
yeah, that's why whenever I learned about what you were doing, Jeffrey, as soon as Sticky DAO made their Twitter account, I was like, yep, follow that. I'm gonna offload my brain power a little bit, because I'm not super into the NFTs. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what's taking up all my cycles, but I am interested. So it's like, fucking great. You guys will tell me what's hot. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean, and the community that you want to be in is the one that tells you things that you're interested in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Ultimately, one of the best ways to evaluate an NFT project, I think, is to check out the community, go into the Discord, listen in, watch what's being said, and who's saying it, and if it's something that you'd like to be more of a part of, then that's a really good reason to get into an NFT.
So, do you guys want to go to questions?
Yeah, I think we have somebody who. Yep.
Yeah.
There we go.
Ohager, am I pronouncing correctly?
Oh well, yeah. It's not. Yeah, Ohager. Yeah, you can do
Ohager.
that. It's just like my first name with my last name together. It's like it came up in GitHub, and I said, okay, that's everybody. People that know me know me by that.
So you appeared late. Sorry, we brought you in now, but go ahead and give us a quick intro to Signum.
Yeah, very, very quick. So I'm one of the core members, developers on the Signum network, formerly Burstcoin. Maybe some OG crypto gangsters know that Burstcoin stuff. This is hard drive mining thing, and we're going for things like the foundation of the sustainable future. So we're not proof of work. We are more we were proof of capacity, but we extended this a little bit more like a hybrid of staking and something like that. And actually we had a rebranding last year with Signum, so we're BBSAA members, so that's why we know each other, Joe. Right. And so we struggled a little bit. This is interesting what we're going to do. You already mentioned that it wasn't backstage. You said that that tech needs to go to the user. So and we are very techy. We can do all the API level. We can use RPC calls and all this stuff. But that's where we struggle in our community. At this moment, we need to get into the usability. We need to pick up the crowd. And so that's what we do. So it's not, at this moment, we're doing an NFT portal. So we are capable to do this also. And this is like on our own chain, native chain, and all this stuff. And we're coming up with even more things now. But it's hard work. It's hard work and hard lessons we had.
Perfect. Okay. All right.
Cool.
We're gonna go to questions now, and I think I'm gonna hand it over to Greg. Greg's gonna do all the questions.
All right. So, question number 1, we've got Jacob Wayne, and the question is, when do you think the public will be thrilled about the new realization that NFTs have more utility than minted JPEGs?
I think that's very far away, because when you see announcements from real utility from big companies that are not in Web3 yet, and you take a look at the comments on Twitter, for example, they are all tearing down the idea of blockchain, of NFTs, of anything Web3. So there's still a really long way to go before people are excited about this new technology, in my opinion. But
I
it's mostly
completely disagree.
Okay, tell me why.
I think that and we've talked about this at length, but I was so excited about NFTs years and years ago, and it really I hate saying this, but it makes me feel so old. But like what I call NFTs now I call them entertainment NFTs, because when NFTs were first being talked about years ago, I was really excited about all the real utility and like the legal kind of stuff. And I think that's going to happen. And I think what Jeffrey is talking about is more like at the big, huge, grandiose things that are going to happen with NFTs. But I think that people are going to start getting excited about the real world use cases very soon. But they're going to be like what we were talking about, concert tickets. And smaller things like that, when people can just use like Ticketmaster, and you can literally buy a ticket from a scalper and know 100% that it is legit. We've said this at every concert that I've been to. when you're in line to go in, at least one person, you'll see it, in front of you or at least, while you're there, there's someone that gets stopped and they're like, this is a fake ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so mad because they have a counterfeit ticket. And with NFTs, you can't do that. So it's I think those kind of things, and then the benefits you get with, that we've talked about with buying your concert ticket, that you get a special, gift or something. It's not just you use it and it's over with. And then you have discounts for, future tickets, or you get something, you can buy their next album, a week early. There's so many things that are going to be real utility when it comes to NFTs on a small scale, and that the average people are really going to care about and get excited about. I think those things are coming really soon.
Yep. I do agree with you on that. It's just more that how do you say it? Like the energy consumption overshadows the benefits of what we are really trying to build.
Right. Well,
that's what I see. Like every time I see a big company, like a gaming company, announcing that they are launching in-game NFTs, the only comments you see is like, oh, energy consumption this, energy consumption that, and the people don't really understand the benefits yet. Like they don't understand that they can own this in-game item and they can resell it even if they want when they are done with it. So
that's a disingenuous attack too, right? Because they love to trot out the statistic that it's the same as a nation state that they can rank. It's Estonia or whatever. Like they point to a country and they say, look at all that energy use. When they're pointing to a thing that's not like to like, if they wanted to point to the thing that was like to like, they'd point at the petrodollar, which, as we know right now, is causing the world to melt down as economies fragment, because we have leadership that wants to use it divisively rather than keep this medium of exchange that's trustworthy. We have we funded lots and lots and lots of terrible things back when you had more coins and paper dollars. This was literally farming cotton, making dyes, smelting ores. Like this is stuff that was destroying the freaking planet. You can run a blockchain on clean energy. Like it doesn't matter what the consensus protocol is. It's cleaner than other currencies, all other currencies probably in history. So like I just don't like that assault on it, because it's so normative. It just says
I know, but the question was if the majority of people will be excited.
Right, and I think we do ourselves a disservice by acceding to that.
I know that it's kidding, but okay, that's true. Good point.
Well, and in my opinion, the faster we can get toward the utility value, this not telling someone this is crypto, this is an NFT, therefore, which a lot of those announcements are based upon, we want our stock price to go up, we want the board to see that we're modernizing or we're using the new thing, but they don't think about the actual use. There's several instances where I've talked to people at high levels in charge of projects and literally was told, well, those are great things, but I was told by the CEO that they wanted this by next month, so this is exactly what we're doing. And guess what? The thing rolls out, it's a total flop. Nobody gives a shit. They make an announcement. I don't know if their stock prices were affected, but they don't have any meaningful impact on their business. Yep. And the sooner you can get to a recognition of the utility and applying it to a business goal and improving the interface, which all of that requires, frankly, to get rid of all the dogma around pure decentralization of Ethereum. We saw where that leads. Is like, oh, well, I guess we need layer twos, right? It's like you can't scale with pure decentralization to the level you need. Therefore, you have to, in my opinion, transparently show where the decentralization is. You can have a centralized utility to have that ticket and have a performant and scalable system that doesn't cost you $20 per transaction to issue those tickets, right? To sell, because if the scalper is like, well, I will sell you this ticket for half the price, but there is a $20 fee to transfer it, is BS. That's not going to happen. But the proof has to be to that level of Ethereum and Bitcoin.
Right, so and we're kind of letting the good be the perfect be the enemy of the good in that respect, right? Like we should still be working towards pure decentralization, but like.
And it's even the divide and conquer is even amongst ourselves, because you'll have Bitcoin people lambasting Ethereum people. It's like, oh, Ethereum is nothing, it'll be gone. Bitcoin's the only thing that's going to be around forever. And then you have the same thing with the Ripple people in Ethereum, and it's ridiculous. It's all divide and conquer. And
I do think one or two completely decentralized networks have to exist for this to not be a thing that gets cracked down on and erased. But as long as they're stacked on top of it, they can be the base layer that provides that security.
Bitcoin or Monero or I mean any of those are there for that specific utility, and the other ones can't leverage them. That's what we do.
I wanted to guys circle back to one other thing that I refuse to let stand in the narrative, and that the JPEGs are of no value, or at least they're not a valid utility. Like, have you ever seen any project take off community-wise that did not have something with a face on it, a human face that you could stick on, or a human or anthropomorphized or whatever face?
Well, yeah, community branding is definitely a thing.
It is super important to get people to rally around this, and it seems like the way that people find that sort of that comedy with a particular community is that a particular profile picture resonates with them. They want to be able to say and show, I'm part of this, and without something with with eyes and a nose and a smile, for the most part. Like, I mean, obviously it could be
and all the
variations on that. Like, you can't do it with regular people. Like, they need to connect with something.
Yeah.
The cool thing about that is, like,
important thing.
Well, actually, no, I won't go on to that because I'm just going to carry on.
It is the community side. It's like most corporates don't have a mascot. Most corporates don't have a mascot. Most open source projects did have a mascot. That's why we created the JoJo Dragon mascot when we started, because we wanted that feel, the community side, and
that's why I like Dragonchain so much, only because of JoJo.
Yep. See, there you go. That was it, right? So, and it's a weird thing though, because we'll get comments like, that's unprofessional. I do not know why you have this cartoony thing that's not corporate.
Yeah, look at PostgreSQL. They have a freaking cartoon elephant, and it's awesome.
GitHub has an OctaKitty, right? I mean, it's like there's a bunch of cool stuff like that, right? So
it's been the opposite for me. I've had people message me like, "Hey, man, I don't know anything about Dragonchain, but that's such a cool logo. What's it about?" Or they want to get merchandise just because it's a really cool logo.
It is a good separator too, because it does help us. Because I will tell you, anybody who says it's a horrible logo is naturally either a demon or someone who is not a good person. It's been consistent across the board. You can look it up across the board.
I don't know, man. I introduced my mom to Dragonchain. You know what I mean? And she was like, "That's great, but what's up with that logo? I don't know." So I don't know if my mom's demonic or not, but might explain a lot about me if that's the case. Right. But it's a plush little happy JoJo logo. We should have like plush stuffed merch.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Definitely. That should be a somebody should make that a proposal.
You could make an NFT of your mascot.
Yeah, we've talked about that, like having a series. I know that'll happen. I just don't know when. Maybe waiting for the timing. Maybe wait for Sticky DAO to come out, and we'll figure out how to issue. Because we have, if you remember the all the Chad stuff in the rebrand, right?
Oh yes. Oh boy.
So anyway, okay. So
what I just want to say that we were talking about the utility stuff. I mean, I think one of the issues is that we talked about. Oh, I heard talking about wisdom, crowd wisdom. Sometimes crowd wisdom is like just average. I mean, it's average, to be honest. And many people don't know what's possible if there are not some spearheads around and they're going insane. Like, for example, Satoshi said that he is he knew about NFT a few years ago. I started playing around 2 years ago with that, and I made something completely different on top and not using graphics. Nowadays, we have a cinema. It's like people think NFT is digital art, which is transferable or tradable. And that's not. I mean, that's the issue. I see when I go around my town here and say like, oh, this could be NFT. I can kill this bureaucratic stuff here using NFTs. I could, but wow, there are kind of things in our society we cannot just like revolutionize because there are authorities behind that. There are interests behind that. that's very problematic, I think. And I think because of this, the image thing came up on the e-game stuff. And so with NFTs was the easiest one to adopt NFTs and the best way to spread the word. I think we're in the beginning of understanding what NFT is, and the crowds will come later, and we have to show them.
We need an NFT World Fair is what we need, like where we can show people things like this is electricity, like this is the magic you can do with this. Like here's how the post office could work without all of this extra.
Whereas
craft
before we would have NFTs at the World Fair. That's how they would have been introduced.
Yeah. Well, and that is the thing too, because I know back at Disney, we first looked would have been 2014, 2015. One of the earliest things we were trying to get in place was an NFT based, again on Dragonchain, an NFT based authenticity for the collectible items that they sell, right? Because you think about it, people trade these things, and we were trying. We were totally unsuccessful. It was early in our career there for this, but we were trying to get them to combine it to the in-park gaming stuff, so that essentially you could have very unique items that you would get a digital reward, which you could put on your profile for your family and brag, but that one NFT would allow you access to buy some pin or some special merch that would be a real world item where they're now monetizing it, and you now have the authenticity. So people who would collect those would know 1 out of 100 people actually go and spend the $50 to buy it. And so now it's going to be worth so much more because they'll never make that again. Right. And we were too early for them to understand how and why that might work. But, stuff like that's
collectability thing. That's more of a niche kind of industry but it is blowing up.
Yeah.
Because that's literally, you have a little paper, certificate of authenticity when you buy an autograph or any kind of collectible. Whereas now you can use the NFT to connect to that serial number or whatever it is of that collectible. And that has been a really huge thing. And that's something that people are very excited about as far as, people being excited about NFTs. Yeah. But it's a small space. And it's one of the bigger spaces of, kind of the niche industries, collectibles. But that's something that I was really excited about. And I think that is taking off. And also bringing that real world, because that's a big thing I think that we need first, is that bridge between real world and metaverse, or digital goods, or whatever you want to say. What the average kind of person thinks of as fake, and then my real world collectible or thing that I buy, because that's what's really hard for people to get their head around when it comes to crypto in general, Bitcoin, whatever. It's not real, it's fake. And if you explain it, well, where's your money? You work all month, you get a big bag of cash. Do you go to the cashier at your corporation and they dole you out a bunch of cash? It's not like that anymore. You get ones and zeros, deposited into your bank, and you use a little piece of plastic with numbers on it, and that's how you pay for everything. You don't actually it's not real. You don't use real money anymore. A lot of places don't even take cash for whatever reason they want to give. I said, you already live digitally. And then it's like, people take a step back, like, oh yeah, you're right. But I think the collectibles is one of the biggest areas where the NFTs and people who know nothing about crypto, nothing about even technology, that's something that they can get excited about, and where they're kind of dipping their toe into it.
Absolutely. Well, and I think ultimately what it comes down to is, in the short term, the markets are a voting machine, and in the long term, they're a weighing machine. So we'll see with time. So next question, to keep things rolling, we've got Josh O. Do you think art galleries will have more NFT shows, and does Sticky DAO have any future plans for something like this? The whole event could be NFT based. Thinking back of Joe's posted experience? Thanks. So,
well, that's a really good question. We do see already that a lot of NFT communities and DAOs are already making their own galleries, even with established brands like Christie's. So yeah, there are no plans for Sticky DAO to make galleries, but I think we will collaborate with other partners, and definitely interested in the art gallery industry, but the Web3 version of it and not the old version. So yeah, it's an interesting field.
Yeah, I think so. I think definitely too. I think it's going to be just kind of a category, of art when you're having shows or auctions, or I think you'll have sculptures, paintings, NFTs. It's almost there now. When you look at the huge amounts of money that have been spent, the industry and people can see that. Oh my God, we can make a ton of money with this. It's something that they're gonna kind of use and try to make as much money on it as they can. Even if they're making a percentage of what's sold, and they could sell tens or thousands or tens of thousands of dollars worth of merchandise, and then they could sell millions of dollars worth of merchandise. It's a lot easier. I mean, it's a no-brainer what they're going to do. They're definitely going to implement NFT sales.
Yeah, I got invited to this Seattle NFT museum, which was interesting because everything was up on screens, right? And they had good educational things on some of the walls. They had an Ethereum miner rig set up and everything right there on the wall and stuff. And I don't know. It was interesting because I was even thinking about the fact that who's to say that when physical paintings, real paintings that aren't fully digital, end up being mapped to an NFT, so the ownership holds it, or even fractionally, that you might have a million NFTs that own this piece, and maybe one of them is tagged as the holder. So that's the most valuable one if you want to hang it in your den or something. But that essentially it's just an interesting thing because this was obviously, and I thought it was pretty good because it was for a normie, that anyone walking off the street that could come in and learn about the high, a high level, the tech and what's behind it and why it's different than just, oh, here's a picture. It was pretty cool. So
that's a good thing you brought up. So South by Southwest, from my own experience as a kid, what was this? My mom used to take me to this museum in Philadelphia. There was the Museum of Modern Art, but there was, I forget what it was. But it was really interactive. I think it was about science and technology, but it was really, really interactive. And Dave was at South by Southwest, sent me this the video, about the people they could paint and stuff on the wall, and they could create.
Yeah,
that would look so cool and so just fun. And I was thinking, you imagine creating something like that, and then it become an NFT. You could buy it.
Can I just add something to that?
Yeah, and I got to follow up on the same thing too. When you get done,
you go first.
Okay, I was there's a museum, and this is kind of a I don't want it to take too long, but I kind of want to field a little question that we can think about live. But there's a museum in Gainesville locally called the Cade Museum, and I know I have access to, I've met and I could contact them, who owns it and who curates it. The Gatorade people in Gainesville, Gatorade came from here, so that money is behind the Cade Museum. And what it is exactly what Sean was talking about, where it's focused on younger people coming in and looking at technology and how it works, and it's interactive and you can play with it and you can see the things move and all that stuff. And it's a perfect setting. They even do a podcast from there, and they're really active in reaching out to get new people to come in and set up a demo that people can interact with. And I'm wondering, how do you approach someone like a museum like that about hey, I know how to do this if you're interested. How can we talk about setting this up for your museum, because it would be amazing. How do you even get in the door there? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
because of what you were talking about with people previously having an idea that NFTs were silly or they destroy the ozone or whatever it is today.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
You usually have to seed the ideas around it, like say, bring up something they'll hear about later, especially something functional and useful. That when they realize it's like, wait a minute, Dave told me about that. I'm going to go ask him for more details because I now understand this, right?
This might be a crazy idea. I'm going to float this out there and see what happens because I literally just had this. It's probably a ridiculous notion, but it might not be. So consider this. Because NFTs are authenticated digitally, right? You have, you have this record that says this thing is what I intended to be this thing. And, and if you're the artist creating that, then you've basically made that assertion in a way that's verifiable. Who's to say it can't be displayed at multiple different locations? Right now, a limitation on physical art in physical art shows is that it can show up in one place in the world, only one place in the world. You can display digital things, broadly. If you had a display mechanism set up for it, you could actually have the same art piece hung on every museum that wants to have it.
Yeah. Plus, they cannot even steal it.
Yeah, so like an art show would be like a license you could buy.
That is beautiful, as long as they don't have it in the picture frame in a hot wallet, right? Which means the equivalent of what some exchanges do. But the thing I was going to bring up is, in my opinion, and some of the stuff that we're working on relates to this. I don't want to give out too much, but it's an obvious thing. I've talked about this before. That the biggest thing, in my opinion, for value that's missing from the NFTs beyond the scalability and various other things is that there's no provenance. That let's say I have a piece that let's say Jeffrey does some digital piece. He puts it out as an NFT. Let's say that Sean has another piece, and they're both, I don't know if this is going to be the best example. They both end up in 10 years worth some amount of money. But Sean, while he was creating his digital piece, took snapshots of the development contemporaneously. So you can prove that the very first frame of what became this famous piece is on chain as the artist was creating the piece, right? Now, let's say you have some question at the 11-year mark of, wait a minute, is this, did Jeffrey really create this back then, or did he steal it from some other artist? You can look at it and say, I have a lot more evidence that Sean did not do that, whereas Jeffrey did. And I think that alone is going to create embedded value in that NFT. And the fact that the other side of it is, if you have a platform for it, that the artist, while they're building their next piece, and maybe, a lot of artists will work on multiple pieces at the same time, you could, if they wanted, see their development. You can see the in-progress production of a new piece, and you could bid on it before it's done. So the artist can even prioritize, this is worth a lot more. I'm going to finish this one, right? It's an interesting thing. You could even potentially get feedback. It's like, hey, it needs more blue. I mean, if you wanted to take it, but it's a crazy thing that could become valuable in the production of NFTs that, that's a very user-friendly, understandable, non-crypto, non-geeky thing that any normal user is like, holy crap, I don't understand the tech behind it, but I want that piece and I know it's going to be worth something, right? Anyway.
But there's also creative collaboration notions, right? Like you could have art shows that were participative, where every time you pass it to a new a new explicit holder in the show's circuit, you add some new layer to it. Like there's so many opportunities for kinds of creativity that we haven't even been able to conceive of because we have this notion of art that is locked into a time period before the digital. Because art was cheap until now.
It's coming.
And that always was weird to me with the internet. I don't know if you guys thought it was weird. Like the first time you went online, you're like, holy crap, there's all these free pictures and you can just save them. Nobody can stop you, even though it's not great to do that. Like there's nothing in the way. Now you can still do it, but you can't get economic value from it without paying, which I think is really ultimately what benefits art the most.
Cool.
So, do you guys want to do the next question?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. So we've got, and this one's a heck of a question. So we've got Treeks, who asks, or who poses a topic, NFTs and the real estate industry.
That's an interesting topic. Yeah, I'm still not completely where I need to be on that. I need to do a lot more studying, and I'm not a real estate guy at all. Mm-hmm. But I've started, with rolling out on DIN with the governance as a service sort of thing, where you can just pop in and spin up your own DAO structure without knowing anything technical, and with your friends and your community who wants to get involved, not knowing anything technical, to be able to still operate like that. I've been getting questions from people who want to do, specifically, there's one about real estate. There's an issue with, and it's interesting as hell, man. I love Gainesville. I love my town. And these people want to save our town, basically, because it's a college town. It's University of Florida. They have most of the influence in town. And City Hall, local government is just letting developers come in and demolish cultural icons and build student apartments for more apartments, more housing, more stuff like that. For years, they've been literally demolishing active operating arts-based businesses because they're leasing and they don't own the building, right? So they're leasing and UF owns the building. So we want more housing. So
they're not accommodating the growth of that by having an art space that replaces it, that they can give it a similar price.
There was 60 people that showed up at town hall to oppose this stuff, whenever I went, and they just don't freaking care. So what people want to do now that understand DAOs and understand, NFTs and self-governance and self-sovereignty and things like that.
Outbid them for the property?
Yeah, they want to. They want to figure out. I want to help them figure out how to do that. But that's definitely an interesting use for NFTs and real estate and DAOs. Is literally anti-gentrification efforts. Whenever the lawmakers and the ordinance creators and the people that tell you what you can and can't do in town are not aligned with their community, the community can, individually you can't do shit. There's a bunch of people that aren't in power and don't have a bunch of money. But together you can pitch in and maybe what? Let's stop development encroaching on this one neighborhood that's been here forever and historical by just purchasing it all up. Let's maybe even renovate everyone's house, but keep the rent the same and be nice. We just want to be a cool city, a cool town to live in.
Right. Or let's put conditions on the grant that say they have to put an art space in, and they have to make it affordable at the same rate for N number of years before they start raising anything.
Yeah, and
if they improve the neighborhood, have more people, it'd be great for the artists on the ground floor if there's a space they're allowed to be in.
Yeah, and the idea is basically having a voice again, which is what you're supposed to have, in your community anyway, with local entities and stuff. You're supposed to have some sort of say in, if everybody in this part of town is no, we don't want that, but it happens anyway. There's a problem. There's an issue. And so this is
going door to door and taking those donations, and in exchange you get a profile pic you can put on your freaking social media, right? I'm against this, or I'm part of this group.
True.
But is there something in real estate that you really need an NFT for, or is NFT just a fancy word for a certificate or a transaction?
It depends on how you do it. Depends on your.
There's a lot of things that NFTs I think open up in real estate. Real estate is one of the biggest things I was most excited about years and years ago. But I think what you're talking about, in the music industry, I think if your city does that your city isn't that city anymore. It loses part of its soul of what made it. Wherever you're at, you're in Gainesville. What made Gainesville was these places, and if you take them away and just put up housing, it's just the Hunger Games. It's just
and something that somebody said at one of these hearings was there's this disconnect between what culture thrives with and what the community wants versus developers and tax money and stuff like that. And the city was well, we're going to have all of this retail space on the bottom below the apartment. So really it's dual use. So it's okay. And the businesses can go back in there, but they're putting in CVS on the corner. And somebody said, nobody's coming in. Nobody's going to take a trip to Gainesville to visit the new CVS on the corner. These aren't the kinds of businesses that make your city interesting. that kind of thing,
Well, but more to Jeffrey's question, like I think that there are a lot from at the very base layer of real estate, the way that it functions from a deeds and titles perspective.
Yes.
There are all sorts of little gotchas that make law practice in that area just about as Byzantine and difficult as it is boring. I did not go into real estate for a reason, but like, in the every country has a different system, for example. So like in the United States, you will have, easements and meets and bounds descriptions in some states. One state will have a first to file rule for deciding disputes over title when somebody sells the same property twice. Others will have a first to perfect, where like you have to get it to the Register of Deeds and it has to be published, and you get your certification back. But otherwise, right next door across the state line, it's you just get your application in even if it's deficient. And if somebody else comes in after and files a perfected one, it still doesn't count. Like all of these things are little pieces of administrative overhead that burden the whole system without adding a lot of value.
And I think a lot of them are purposeful.
And we can basically take all of that value and put it back into, these other efforts, right? Like, and the problem's even worse in parts of the world that are less stable than
supposedly
the United States.
That's what I wanted to make the point about those places that are less stable. I think that with NFTs coming into real estate, they're going to change, not to get too philosophical, but it's like the next level or evolution of humanity. Like Russia invaded Ukraine. Oh my God, it's terrible. It's just, oh my, we don't do that. But, 300 years ago, it's like, yeah, that's what countries do. It was just like a normal thing. As soon as you were powerful enough, you tried to take over and get more. And now we've come to a point where that's not okay.
Right. Well, how do you,
I think that if all real estate was in NFTs, even in this very unstable country, whatever part of the world that warlords, the government basically changes every 4 years. You could have had a farm or some kind of family plantation or something that you've had for generations, and that just in a couple months, some new government comes in, they take it over, and then 6 months or 2 years later, things normalize, and then they're kicked out and or hung in the streets for war crimes. And now you're like, hey, this is my country or my family's land, and they're like, what are you talking about? You have no proof.
If you own the recorder of deeds, you can change the deeds.
Even if I know people are going to make the point that it's not really, if it's not enforceable, eventually it will be. And eventually, it can take a long time.
Generational dispute.
The practice will go away, where it's not even a thought. You can't do that.
The Native Americans had NFTs for the land that they held at the time, if they believed in property at the time, right? I mean, that would have been a generational dispute that you would have to hope that at some point it would be recognized, and maybe it would be, maybe it wouldn't. We're more polite now. We probably But I've been wanting to say this. Sorry, there is a project called, and that's the reason. I think it's I think a lot of the issues with the property structure in the U.S. is by design, that you wouldn't have radio commercials for title property insurance unless there was somebody. It's like, what is that a thing? Do people steal other people's property? Well, I've heard since that if you hold your own title, it's possible. If the bank holds it, for some reason, it doesn't ever happen. Right. So one way or another, if you hold your own title to your house, you might need that. But with NFTs, at least you would have an authority that you could take to court and say, I own this. There's no reason that some corrupt bureaucrat should have transferred that without proper authority. But, it's a crazy thing. And then the other side of it is that there's a group called Proppy. And I just heard for various reasons about this, where they essentially convert your property to an NFT, and apparently there are tax benefits and other transfer benefits to that outside of it. So they, if I understand correctly, and I'm not an expert, they do map it to the traditional system, but they will back it. And I don't know if it's if you can fractionalize that or tokenize that or not. But sorry.
You can already put digital records on the record with a court. A probate court gets to decide what good evidence is, right? Just because nobody's tried it yet and had it challenged by some kind of legal ruling and affirmed by a higher court in the United States. Like, that's how it works here, right? Every country that has a decent, stable system of managing this has a way to settle these issues. And they have rules of evidence that blockchains actually legitimately fit within in a way that that's really powerful. And judges that pay attention and they are aware of this, at least in the U.S. But I think more importantly, right, this system will enable people to use the power of the deed to do a lot more, because it's a thing that can give charity. It is a thing that can grant easements. It's a thing that can do all of these neat things that are right now just really freaking expensive and difficult to accomplish. And if land use is going to be an issue in the future, which we know it is, I mean,
and why hasn't happened yet though? Is it because
it's a utility we probably can't do without?
Is it because there's too much value in what the existing system already gives to the title companies and the lawyers? Is that?
I think it probably has a lot more to do with real estate investment trusts than anything.
Well, I can tell you what happened to my niece last week. Her and her fiance went and bought a car. They went over there, looked at the car. It was just peer-to-peer individual. They bought the car. The guy signs the title over to him. They take it. They leave. She goes to the county clerk, hands the title to her, and she's like, "This guy signed both places here. He just sold the car to himself." So I'm like, "Do you have a receipt?" She said, "No, I don't need a receipt. They gave me the title." So she had to go. I was like, he could just file for a lost title or there's nothing you can really do because there's no proof that you have ownership of that. So luckily it was, the guy was on the up and up. It was a mistake. But if it was an NFT, it was an easy transfer. I mean, and in a way you could take the government out of it and those fees because you have total proof of ownership. You transferred it. We're done. But I mean, you could still, I guess, have a registration where the still get.
I had a related situation where I almost lost my job because I sold my car to who I thought was a family friend, and I was lazy about reporting that I had sold it, and then he never intended to put it in his name, so he got stopped driving without a license and no insurance. No, he crashed. That's what it was. He freaking wrecked and caused damage and stuff. And then he gave him my name. Said he was me because it was my car.
Wow.
And so at the time I drove for a company that required me to have a license and drive. And at that time I was getting my license revoked for what he did. And it was 2 weeks with the state to convince them that no, I freaking sold this to this guy and he lied. That kind of thing. And this almost removed my livelihood. My company was going to fire me over that kind of thing. So yeah, it would be great if we could have had an NFT transfer at the time when he gave me the cash and I gave him the title to be nope, this was when it happened for sure, that kind of thing. So yeah, utility is king, whether people look into it or not.
Yeah, they had a beat, but it was my parents. I bought their Suburban, and I went through. It was years and years ago, but I went through allegedly, I went through a red light and a camera caught it, and because it was they said it took like 3 or 4 months, but it was I waited 2 weeks before I transferred the title. Within that 2 weeks. So my mom was just furious. She was so furious. She's like, "You can see you in this picture." It's I didn't know, It's our insurance is going to go up, but it was
You didn't tell her that was unconstitutional, and she shouldn't be judging you on that.
Well, since then it's all fixed, and they're not
guys
legal anymore. But
I hate to be the heavy and interject like this. I'm usually the one who wants to run long, but we are running out of time for the day. So so let's go into the wrap up sequence. Thank you everybody for the questions. They're fantastic. You'll of course be rewarded for them. Obviously with NFTs, there's so much potential out there. We were only able to get into existing use cases that people were misunderstanding and one or two new places, and we barely scratched the surface. This is a freaking iceberg, and we are standing on the tip, and we cannot even see the water from here. So with that, I'll hand it off to let's say Joe to say what's up this week.
Okay. So Dragonchain is always working a lot on NFTs. I'll try to remain topical. That you can go to den.social. I don't know this, but I would assume that we have created more NFTs than any platform on earth inside of Den with Dragonchain because it's scalable there. It's about 100 and something million NFTs in the past year and a half or so. And more every month, obviously, and more as people build new layers. So the utility of NFTs super important to us. So, go check out din.social, go check out Dragonchain if you're interested in doing that on your own platform or otherwise. That's probably good.
Cool. Awesome. Yep. Dave, what do you got going on?
Yeah, for sure. What I want to say is if you want to do any of this DAO stuff, come check out Den Social. We're specifically building out tools to do that kind of thing, and you can come in and just sort of like turnkey, bring people in. We can set up a meeting for onboarding, show you how stuff works. I've got a promise that I haven't kept yet on cranking out some tutorial videos too. But the state of the platform is, I would say, ready. Like we just got chat, which I've said before last week. And that's really, really useful. More stuff on that's coming. But importantly, like go start a DAO. Take back ownership of everything that somebody else is not doing right and do it yourself. And we can help you with the toolkits to make sure that's organized and you're able to efficiently operate your organization.
Cool. Ohager, what do you got going on this week? Any cool news you want to share with the audience?
Oh, well, just like as I mentioned, we are hardly working on our NFT arts platform. This is about to be released. We're aiming about 2 weeks. So we're working on this since 5 months already. So we had iterations of community. We asked the community what's missing. We asked them for tests. They helped us a lot. It was pretty cool. That's coming out then. And afterwards, we're starting to exploit really the utility of NFTs in several ways. So for example, 2 years ago, I built a platform for dApps or services within our community because it was all scattered around. And I said, doing a showroom, like a marketplace where people can say, oh, I have a project that with tool like that. I have that tool. I have this mining tool like that, Explorer tool, I don't know what. And I turned this project into NFTs and people can donate on that. And this was my first contact with NFTs. And I want to explore this more, like having rich functional NFTs. So there is logic attached to that. And the other thing is that need to explore more with the industry or what we have around here. I think of things like supply chain stuff. I'm thinking of the real estate thing. So we have kind of a system which is really, and I want to get rid of that. I know that it's not possible, because it's a huge system. It's inbuilt in the society, but that's what I'm aiming for. By solar.
Rock and roll, man. I'm totally with you. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
We'll be watching out. You got to come back on and talk again, man. I feel like you got a lot more to say than you got to say. So, Jeffrey, what we heard about you earlier is in terms of the project. Do you want a parting shot? Do you want to say something before we sign off?
I just say keep an eye on Sticky DAO on Twitter because we'll be posting a new article later today about our Arcade NFT partnership. So that's a good one.
Awesome. And we'll go to Sean next. What's up with you, Sean?
Got a Crypto Rewind tomorrow on my channel on Rice TVX. I don't think we have one after that because Shitcoin 2022 is going on in Miami along with Bitcoin 2022. We'll have some coverage of that. Actually, I was thinking before the whole pandemic hit, I was about to start a charity and fund it with Diddy Masternode. So I didn't because of everything. I mean, it was right when everything hit. But I was actually thinking about doing that and thinking about using NFTs also to help fund it.
Well, we still have to get our yacht too, so like that has to happen.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely have to get the solar yacht.
And for me, I am going to be this week working with my team to cut over to the new architecture. Cardinal is going live 100%. We're turning off the old back end, and then we're full steam ahead on expanding to Polygon. So, and as usual, I would say if you see an idea that isn't being made and you want it to exist, you are the only thing standing in your way. You should go do it, and if we can help you, we will. So. With that, I'd say thank you guys. Remember to like, share, retweet, cross-post, screenshot, and NFT, whatever you want to do, but get the word out about this show, because the more it spreads, the more the contributors will be rewarded. So with that.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best.
Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.